हरिः ओं श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Namaste friends. Welcome to session 18 of the series Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation, a study of selected verses from the Bhagavad Gita based on Shankara Bhashya. In the previous class on chapter 4, we studied verses 9 to 19. Sri Krishna concluded the Avatara topic and began the central teaching of this chapter, Gnana Karma Sannyasa, or giving up of action through knowledge leading to moksha. Arjuna, however, is still looking for moksha without fighting the war. So the Lord says that the only way to realization is through Karma Yoga, which removes malam or impurity of the mind, Upasana, which removes extrovertedness or vikshepa, and finally Gnanam, which removes the veil of ignorance, Avarana. Today, we are going to study the best verses of this chapter and perhaps some of the best in the entire Gita itself on Gnana Yoga. I request Dr. Anupama ma'am to introduce the day's topic and take the session forward. Over to you, Anupama ma'am.
Thank you. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are now studying the fourth chapter titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. What is the meaning of Jnana Karma Sannyasa? It means Jnanena Karmasya Sannyasa, or renunciation of doership by knowledge. What is renunciation or sannyasa? Renunciation in this context means falsification, and falsification of karma is called karma sannyasa. How? Jnanena karma mityatva nischaya. What is jnanam or knowledge? It is atma anatma viveka, the knowledge that I am the akarta atma, the upper bird, distinctly different from the doer, the karta ahankara. Jnanena karma sannyasa is abhimana tyaga. This karma sannyasa is not accomplished by becoming a sannyasi, meaning the fourth ashrama, the Turiya ashrama, but only by becoming a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna and by understanding through shravana, manana, nidithyasana that I get this knowledge. I should know that as Atma, I am a karta. As ahankara, I am never free from karma. To understand this concept of karta and akarta, let us use the Mundaka mantra 311. Dva suparna sayuja sakaya. Atma and ahankara are close friends. Samanam vriksham parishasvajate. They cling to the same body. Tayo anya pipilam swadu athi. The ahankara, the lower bird, is nitya karta, and an ashnan anya abhichaka shiti. The atma, the upper bird, is nitya akarta. Now, what is karma? Kriyate iti karma. Any action. Karma could be laukika, vaidika. It could be kaika, vachika, manika. It could be dharmika, adharmika. It could be any action. So any karma we know has relevance only in the vyavaharika prapancha, the triangular format alone. Why is this so? Because the only other entity outside of the triangular format is the akarta advaita atma, which is in the paramarthika plane. Therefore, being akarta atma, there is no karma in the binary format. So, by exiting the triangular format and entering the binary format, I remain untouched by karma and phalam in all the 3 periods of time. This is Jnanena Karma Sannyasa. A recap. As Atma, I am Nitya Akarta. There is no karma. In the binary format, akarma or actionlessness is absolute, it is eternal, it is Nitya. As Ahankara, I am Nitya Karta. In the triangular format, Ahankara performs action sometimes and has periods of empirical or temporary actionlessness, as in Maunam, fasting, etc. It is mandatory to know the spiritual significance of karma. In Krishna's words, Karmani akarma yaha pashyet, akarmani cha karma. Taking the first one, Karmani akarma yaha pashyet. A wise man sees actionlessness or akarma in action, karmani. How is this so? By identifying with the akarta atma, the upper bird, he knows all karmas belong to the karta ahankara, the lower bird. He is aware that he is the atma tattvam, untainted by karma performed by ahankara. Whereas the ajnani identifies with both ahankara and karma. As we have seen in verse 27, Prakrite kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaram iti manyate. Although this jnani may be a grahastha performing Panchamahayajna, he is not a sadhaka. The yajna is not a sadhana for him and moksha is not his goal. Why? Because he is a nitya mukta. Therefore, Krishna describes him as Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnana Avastita Chetasa. Nobody, including Bhagwan, can stop Ahankara Karmani. Therefore, I should know that Anatma, Anatma Karma, Anatma Karma Phalani belong to the body-mind complex. I should not even be saying my body-mind complex, the Ahankara, and not me. This is Jnana Karma Sannyasa. What happens is, out of ignorance, we transfer the karma of Ahankara to the Akarta Atma, the actions of the lower bird to the upper. This erroneously superimposed karma is called Adhyasa Karma, just as a clear crystal appears red in the proximity of a red rose. A jnani knows that superimposed action is not action. Karmani akarma pashyet. He sees actionlessness of the Atma, akarma, in the midst of Ahankara's actions, karmani. Now, what is akarma or actionlessness? Actionlessness is of two types. First, the absolute actionlessness or nitya akartritvam of Atma. We should know that as ajnanis, we are unaware of this aspect because we do not know about the existence of the upper bird. The second is the anitya actionlessness of ahankara, which is karma expressed as abstinence. So, both karma and akarma of the ahankara do require willful and deliberate decision. They require a karta and karma, and both produce punya and papa. So, although a karma is seemingly actionless, there is a latent action of karma in it. For example, ahimsa is not doing himsa. Asteyam is not stealing. So also aparigraha, brahmacharyam, etc. Therefore, ahankara's akarma and karma are effectively the same. And therefore, akarmani karma yaha pashyet. Now, who is this yaha? He is a viveki, a person who can see karmani akarma, actionlessness in action, the upper bird. As Krishna says, tattva viddo mahabahu guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. The knower of Atma na sajjate means he remains detached with the knowledge that Ahankara functions only in the triangular format. Also, akarmani cha karma, meaning action and actionless, refers to the nivritti karmas. So, a karma could now be at the level of Atma and Ahankara. We should understand this. Atma's akarma is nitya. There is no karta involved and there is no punya papa involved. This only a wise man, a buddhiman, a yukta, a yogi can perceive. Therefore, Krishna calls this jnani saha kritsna karma krita. It's a way of glorifying this jnani, means samashta karma krita. How can one complete all duties? Atma Drishtya, meaning as the upper bird, he is akarta, he has no duties. And Ahankara Drishtya, as the lower bird, duties are eternal. Saha kritsna karma krita, therefore means a jnani falsifies his duties as mithya. Duties belong to mithya ahankara. So, miraculously, burdensome duties are now converted into joyful hobbies of leela. As Krishna says, karmani abhipravritta api. Although the ahankara is extremely active as the lower bird, na eva kinchit karoti sa. I'm free from all actions as the upper bird. So today we'll be studying verses 20 to 24 of this chapter 4. And in these verses, Krishna is describing Sthita Prajna Lakshanani and the negation of Agami Punya Papam. Verse 20 will now be explained to us by Madam Shamala. Madam Shamala, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. From the 18th verse up to the 24th verse of this 4th chapter, Lord Krishna is giving the essential teaching of the entire Gita. 18th verse is considered as a very, very significant verse and a key verse wherein Krishna talks about Atma, Anatma, Viveka. From the 19th verse up to the 24th verse is a commentary on the 18th verse. The 19th verse talked about the karma and karma phala of a wise person are burnt by the fire of knowledge. Jnanagni dagdha karmanam. The 20th verse talks about, the previous slide please. The 20th verse talks about renouncing the deep attachment to the results of action, and it talks about grihastha jnani. Next slide please. The 20th verse goes like this. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya trupto nirashayaha karmanyabhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Next slide please. Krishna wants to point out that once a person gets the self-knowledge, for such a person, karma and akarma, both of them will not be a problem. Action will not be a shackle for him. Inaction will not affect him. On the other hand, if the knowledge is not there, then karma also will be a problem, and giving up of karma also will be a problem. When he has karma, akarma will appear to be better. And when he has no karma, then karma will appear to be better. Therefore, Krishna wants to say that the problem is not with either action or inaction. The problem is inside the mind. Next slide, please. This verse is about a grihastha. So what type of grihastha he is? In the second line of the verse, karmani abhipravrittaha. When he is a grihastha, naturally he has a setup and he is a part of a family, society, social responsibilities. He has to be extremely active. And this jnani grihastha also is abhipravrittaha. Pravrittaha means active. Abhipravrittaha, extremely active. Karmani means in action. Who? This grihastha jnani. But what is the difference? The difference is nitya truptaha. He does not seek fulfillment through these activities. Jnani, with fulfillment, does the activities. And what is the source of fulfillment? That is the higher I. Purnamadaha Purnamidam. Jnani does not seek support emotionally. Then it becomes attachment. He doesn't have emotional hang-ups. Therefore, Nitya Triptaha, Aham Purnaha Asmi. And once this UPS is there, uninterrupted Purnatvam supply, Nirashrayaha. Next slide, please. Shankaracharya translated it as Ashraya Rahitaha, without any dependence. In this context, it has got a particular meaning. Whenever I want to attain any goal in life, which is called Purushartha or Sadhyam, either in the form of Dharma, Artha, Kama or Moksha, I have to hold on to one sadhana or the other. Thus, sadhana becomes a necessary thing as long as I have a sadhya. Therefore, a sadhaka always has an ashraya of sadhanam for getting a sadhyam. And in the case of a jnani, he doesn't want to attain any one of the goals in life. Moksha, he doesn't want to attain because he has already claimed that. Dharma, Artha, Kama, he doesn't want because all these three are included in the moksha. He does not lean psychologically on any external factor. So, depending on external factor is not a sign of strength, but it is weakness caused by ignorance. So, the strength comes only from knowledge, and therefore, this person is nirashrayaha, free from all dependence. How will he be free? Next slide, please. Tyaktva karmapala asankam. He does karmas, but giving up the deep attachment to the results of action. For example, if parents want to put the child in a good university, it is certainly okay. Any parent would expect good future for the child, but there is a difference. If the expectation is fulfilled, it is fine. If the expectation is not fulfilled, what kind of psychological immunity I have? Everybody is prepared for success. Am I prepared to face the failure? Dayananda Swamiji says very beautifully, success in life is nothing but preparation for failure. A man who is well prepared for failure is a successful person. Therefore, karma pala asangam tyaktva. Adi Shankara says, tyaktva karmasu abhimanam phala sangam. One dimension of asanga is abhimanaha, excessive pride in oneself, identification with the karma. Tyaktva, Jnani gives up. And with such a healthy mind, this Jnani performs all the actions. And what is his condition? Next slide, please. Naiva kinchit karoti saha. Next slide, please. He is free from action because in and through all the activities, he remembers his higher self Atma, and therefore he does not claim the action. Example is King Janaka. Actions are no more a burden on him. Therefore, naiva kinchit karoti saha. There is a reason for his doing karma, but inwardly unattached. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, Shamala. So beautifully explained. I think you are a Grihastha Jnani yourself. So in this verse 20, we see how a Jnani performs karma by identifying with the upper bird, the Atma. Therefore, yaha karmani akarma pashet. Here we see three sthita prajna lakshananis of the Jnani. First, tyaktva karma palam sangam means he has no karma, no sankalpa, no karmasu abhimana, and this is called karma abhasa. Second, nitya triptaha. He does work out of fulfillment rather than for fulfillment. And finally, nirashrayaha. He is without emotional dependence on any person or any situation. Verse 21 will now be explained by Dr. Minal. Dr. Minal, please.
Namaste. Thank you, madam. From the 18th verse up to the 24th verse, Lord Krishna describes the nature of a jnani. Only verse numbers 21 and 22 talk about a sannyasi jnani, while the rest speak about a grihastha jnani. Sannyasi jnani can be a vividisha sannyasi and also a vidvat sannyasi. A vividisha sannyasi is a sannyasi who already possesses sadhana chatushtaya shata sampatti, which he has acquired in the brahmacharya ashram itself and therefore does not require grihastha ashrama, the goal of which is developing sadhana chatushtaya shata sampatti. And after entering sannyasa ashram directly from the brahmacharya ashram, the Vividisha sannyasi then practices Shravanam and Mananam and obtains Jnanam. A Vidvat sannyasi is far superior to the Vividisha sannyasi because he has obtained not only sadhana chatushtaya shatasampatti but has practiced Shravanam and Mananam and has obtained Jnanam also in the Brahmacharya ashram itself. Such a sannyasi then directly goes into the sannyasa ashram as a Vidvat sannyasi. Both verse numbers 21 and 22 talk about such a jnani. The central theme of these verses is that a jnani's karma is karma abhasa, meaning that his karmas do not actually produce phalams, freeing a jnani from agami and also sanchita karma. From a samsaric point of view, of course, a jnani has to wear out his or her prarabdha karmas. But from a jnani's personal point of view, even this prarabdha is not claimed. Next slide, please. An Ajnani Karta will always have anxiety about Agami Papam, Agami Punyam, and this comes because the mindset is in a triangular format, as Anupama Madam was just telling us earlier. The triangular format is that I am Jiva, I am the Karta, and there is Brahman somewhere up there. On the other hand, a Jnani looks upon himself as being none other than the Nishkriya Brahman with a karma abhasa. So he has a binary format of mind. And such a jnani is free of all desires, including desires for purusharthas, moksha included, because he is already a jivan mukta. With this background, let us read verse number 21 of the fourth chapter. Nirashiryachitatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. In this verse, Krishna talks about a Vidvat sannyasi jnani, a person who has tyakta sarva parigraha, one who does not have any possessions, no relationships, nor attachments. One who is a nirashi, that is free of binding desires, is a asangraha. Swami Paramarthanandaji prescribes ORT, that is obligations, relations, and transactions reduction for a grihastha ashrami and a complete renunciation of the ORT for a sannyasi. Of course, one must keep in mind that renunciation is meaningful only when the renounced material world is not missed. Otherwise, it will be a suppression, not a renunciation. The next slide, please. Such a Nirashi sannyasi does not lack anything in life and is a Yat Chit Atma, that is the one who has mastered his body and mind by sadhana, making him both physically and mentally fit to endure the willfully chosen sannyasi way of life. Yat, whose Chitta. Chitta here means Mano, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, and all of these put together is called Antakarana. So Chitta here means Antakarana, and Atma here means the body and not the Sachidananda Chaitanya Atma. So both the Chitta, that is inner body, and Atma, that is the outer body, are mastered, are restrained. And such a Vidvat sannyasi does only Shariram Kevalam Karma Kurvan. He engages only in the minimal activities or bare necessities that are required for the maintenance of the body. The sannyasi considers himself as the trustee of this body given to him by Bhagavan. So until his prarabdha is over, he has to take care of his body as the Lord's property. The minimum karma that are required for maintenance of the body, which a sannyasi jnani engages in, are called Trividha Cheshta Shariram Karmani, which includes Snanam, that is bathing, Vastram, clothing, and Bhiksha, that is food gathering. Shankaracharya ji adds a fourth action here, that is treatment of sickness. But even these actions must be done without any dehabhiman, without any ego or attachment to the body. And by doing so, kilbisham na apnoti, the sannyasi does not get any karma phalam. Kilbisham literally means papam, and papam essentially means karma phalam. As the sannyasi jnani does not have a ego, karma really does not produce any karma phalam, neither papam nor punyam. Pertaining to this, in the Gita Bhashyam, Shankaracharya ji gives a special note for the moksha mumukshus. Both punyam due to good karmas and papam due to bad karmas comes under papam only. The difference here is that papam is an iron shackle and punyam is a gold shackle. But in true sense, they are both shackles only. Even moksha or mukti as a goal is an attachment, it is a binding desire. And Dayanand Swamiji aptly says one is a prowling villain while the other is a smiling villain, but both are villains only because both will cause bondage. To conclude, this verse states, having renounced all possessions and having restrained the mind and body, the sannyasi jnani remains free from desires, engaging in minimum activity that is required for the maintenance of the body without any attachment. He does not incur sin. The central theme here is that a jnani, whether it is a sannyasi or a grihastha jnani, does not beget or accumulate either agami or sanchita karma. They have neither papam nor punyam. Thank you very much. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Dr. Minal. That was so perfect, complete. So, as Doctor just explained, this verse describes the Chaturtha Ashram Vat Sannyasi. And as Dr. Minal just said, has renounced court, possessions, obligations, relationships, and transactions, and clasp, controllership, anxiety, and also special prayers. This Krishna describes as Tyaktva Sarva Parigraha. The key word in this verse is Yata Chittatma. Yata means master of Chit, mind, and Atma, the body. Performing basic duties, Kevalam Karma Kurvan, Kilbisham Na Apnoti. He does not incur Agami Karma Palam. Moving on, Madam Triveni will now explain verse 22 for us.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yadrichha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samaha siddhau asiddhau cha krutva apina nibhadyate. Fully content with whatever is obtained by chance, unaffected by the pairs of opposites, and remaining free from jealousy, he is equanimous in success and failure. Though engaged in action, he is not bound. This he is a gnani, a viveki. Yadricha labha santushtaha. He welcomes whatever happens in life as a result of his karma. So yadricha labha santushtaha, satisfied with whatever comes to him as a result of his action. Because we should remember that the events in our life are not totally controlled by us. This is a very important lesson that we have to remember throughout life, that the future is not totally controlled by anyone. But we should be very careful because we tend to go to two extremes. There are one set of people who claim that they can order, decide, and totally control their future. This is one extreme, the arrogant type of people, and they will talk like that until they get a thrash from the Lord. No human being can claim that. Even Bhagavan, when he came as Avatara, could not totally decide what is going to happen. So, one extreme is overconfidence. Then, the second extreme is the fatalistic type who say that nothing is under their control and claim that they do not have any control at all with regard to their future. This is the other extreme. One takes 100% responsibility, another takes 0% responsibility. Gita says both extremes are wrong. Then what is the right attitude? One has to accept that one is the contributory factor with regards to one's future. The whole world is interconnected, and therefore the number of factors that will determine the future is so numerous that instead of enumerating them, we have put all the factors into one huge bag called Daivam or Pradabdham or Ishvara Ichha, God's will. And therefore, what should be the attitude? Contribute the best and prepare the mind to receive any type of result. And this attitude is called Yatricha Labha Santushtaha. Yatricha means whatever happens as karma phalam. But again, we should be very careful with regard to these things. Whatever comes as karma phalam, it is according to the law of the Lord. That does not mean that it has to be accepted without any effort or work for improving the situation. Therefore, accept the present, work for the future. So, worry cannot change the present, worry cannot change the future also. Present requires acceptance, future requires hard work. This is the simple philosophy of Gita. Both present and future do not require worry. Therefore, Krishna said, Ashocyan anvashochastvam. Arjuna, you are worrying because nothing solves worry. Krishna has described similarly in verses 56 and 57 of the second chapter. Life is nothing but facing a series of opposites, series of pairs of opposites. And Dvandvatitaha means the one who has gone beyond the pairs of opposites. It is nothing but not allowing the pairs of opposites to disturb the mind. This is all we can do. Though we cannot stop the pairs of opposites, we can immunize and strengthen ourselves. In the same way, we cannot stop the pairs of opposites, but we can protect ourselves against them by applying Nanam. So, Dvandvatito Vimatsaraha, the one who has gone beyond competition. According to our Shastra, competition is not a healthy thing and is not very much in favor of that. Shastra feels that it is like drug-induced power. Shastra feels competition may bring the best, but invariably it is going to make one compare with the winner and invariably lead to depression, jealousy, cheating also. Therefore, all these are because of competition. Our Shastra says love and cooperation must be the means of performance enhancing, not Matsarya. That is why Matsaryam is included in the 6 enemies of the individual: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. And Gnani is one who does not have this problem of competition, Vimatsaraha. Samasiddha vishuddhau cha. Siddhi means success. Asiddhi means failure. Sama means equanimous according to Vedanta. Success is defined as capacity to manage both successes and failures of life. If there is a method of success all the time, Krishna certainly would have taught that method. Krishna teaches only Gnanam. And what is the purpose of Gnanam? It is not to get success all the time, but it is the capacity to face both adverse as well as favorable results in life. But what Dhanam is to be ready for either. Kritvapi, even though he is extremely active and engaged in action, there will be successes and failures. Na nibhadyate, those actions are no more shackles for him. He enjoys playing the game. For him, it is a sport or leela. Gnani's action is called leela. For Agnani, every action is a struggle. Action remaining the same, Gnanam makes it a game, Agnanam makes it a struggle, a fight, a war. In conclusion, while progressing in our work, we may encounter several situations, some of which we expected and some that we did not. Sri Krishna guides us on how to deal with these situations in this shloka. By definition, Karma Yoga inspires us to work relentlessly. So the refrain here is that such a follower of Karma Yoga will continue to perform actions in this world, yet remain unattached because he never lets external situations destabilize his equanimity. Harihi Om.
Thank you, madam. Summarizing what you have just said, we see that this verse describes how to make karma non-binding. Kritva api na nibhadyate. Here we see 4 sthita prajna lakshanas. First, yad icha labha, and Shankaracharya includes alabha santushta. Yadricha labha alabha santushta means contented with whatever the outcome of his action may be. Dvandva athita, that means unaffected by the dualities of this world, good, evil, success, failure, and so on. Vimatsara, free from jealousy. Vigata matsara. And finally, samaha, or equanimous. Continuing, Madam Indumati will now explain verse 23 for us.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Gatasangasya muktasya jnanavastitacetasaha yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. Word by word meaning goes like this. Samagram karma, meaning of one, this entire action. Jnanavastita chetasaha, of one whose mind is established in knowledge. Gata sangasya, who is free from attachment. Muktasya, who is independent. Acharataha yajnaya, who acts for the sake of yajna. Praviliyate, dissolves. The entire action of one whose mind is established in knowledge, who is free from attachment, meaning who has no identification with the body and is free from the feeling of mindness, whose attachment has vanished, who is independent, and who acts for the sake of yajna, dissolves. Like in the previous verse, in this verse also, a grihastha gnani is described. Many people wonder whether sannyasa is required to become a mukta purusha. In the next slide, we see Lord Krishna resolves the conflict by saying that physical renunciation is not a must, but inner attachment is a must. There is no choice with regard to inner detachment, but with regard to physical renunciation, it is not compulsory. In the next slide, we see that Krishna here says, Gata Sangasya, this Grihastha Gnani has given up attachment to things. He does not claim anything as his own. Then, what is his attitude? His attitude will be, everything belongs to the Lord alone. Whatever I possess is a gift of the Lord for my temporary use. It is God's will to give them to me, and it is God's will to take anything from me at any time, including my own physical body. His attitude will be, I am thankful to God for his gift. I remember all the time that everything belongs to the Lord. And when this attitude is there, he is Gata Sangaha. He uses things, he is associated, but he is not hooked to anyone. In association, one is free. If one is hooked, then there will be potential danger. Therefore, Gata Sangaha, once this detachment is developed, this attitude that everything around me belongs to the Lord gives relief. Therefore, Muktaha, he experiences freedom from tension, freedom from worry, freedom from insecurity and anxiety. In the next slide, we see that Lord Krishna says, Jnanavastita chetasaha. This detachment is because he is established in this knowledge. His mind never loses sight of this teaching because he knows that I am the Atma and the whole world is Anatma. Therefore, Jnana Avastita Chetasaha, he never forgets this Vedantic teaching, and such a person is Yajnaya Karma Acharataha. He performs all the actions as the worship of the Lord. Yajnaha means Ishvara Puja, that is the motive behind the action, that is the purpose behind the action too. In the next slide, we see that in case of an Agnani, what is the purpose behind the action? It is not Yajnaha. Therefore, Apurnatvam is the cause of Agnani's action. Agnani acts for happiness, Gnani acts out of happiness. That is the difference. Therefore, Yajnaha Acharataha Karma. What will happen to his action then? Samagram Karma Praviliyate. All his actions dissolve without producing either Punyam or Papam. Praviliyate means they get dissolved. They do not add Agami Karma, like a roasted seed, which looks like the same, but only one difference is that it cannot germinate. In the next slide, similarly, we have Gnani's karma will be like an Agnani's in all respects, except in one case, Agnani's karma produces punyam or papam, but Gnani's karma does not produce either, and therefore samagram karma praviliyate, that is, the entire action dissolves. To sum up, of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, and whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice, all his actions are dissolved. When a sage performs actions in a spirit of yajna, they dissolve, leaving any impression upon his mind, just as the rainbow disappears when the thin shower falling against the sunlight ends. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Indu. Summing up, verse 23, here the key word is Jnana Avastita Chetasa. This means a Grahastha Ashrama Jnani is in the binary format. This is Jnanena Karma Sannyasa, anchored in Atma Jnanam, identifying with the Akarta Atma. He performs all karmas as yajna or puja. Yajnaya karma acharata. So what is the result? Samagram praviliyate. The akartritva bhavana frees him from karma phalam. Proceeding, Dr. Hegde will now explain verse 24 for us.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Brahmarpanam Brahmahadir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhinaha. Brahmarpanam. That means a grahastha jnani, when he is doing an act of yajna, he makes use of a wooden spoon. Now that is called Brahma. Arpanam is Brahma. So that is the vision of a grahastha jnani. That means whatever he is handling, whatever he is doing, is none other than Atma or himself, or in this context, it is come as Brahman. The offering is Havir. Ghee or whatever is offered is also Brahman. Brahmagni, the fire into which it is offered, is also Agni. Hutam. Hutam here, Adi Shankara interprets as the act of yajna. So the Hutam, the whole yajna process, is also Brahman or Atma. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam. The goal that is to be achieved in the process is also to be the accomplishment of Brahman. And in the case of a Jnani, it is accomplishment of the accomplishment. He's already accomplished. And finally, Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. This perhaps is the key word. A Jnani sees in every action, he sees Brahman in every action. Every action is not mundane. So this is a Grihastha Jnani verse, one of the most powerful verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which makes this whole world mithya. It has already been explained by Dr. Anupama, but let us see what is the meaning of Brahma Karma Samadhina. So this is the climax of Karma Yoga. The climax of Karma Yoga is, it is not what you do, whatever you do, can that become an act of yajna. So every aspect of our life should be a yajna. We look at all our actions as sacred. Every act is done with a sacred intent. An act becomes spiritual no matter how mundane. In Karma Yoga, there are no spiritual or non-spiritual activities. So this is to be remembered. Everything is spiritual and sacred. Normally, the mithyatvam of Brahman is not so strongly brought out as in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, where the falsification of the world and the world is now replaced by the vision of my own self as Atma. Krishna uses the word here as Brahman. So the message for all of us is at least 3 times in a day, we eat food. At that time, let us chant this mantra, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmana Hutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadha, which means the world that I experience is not apart from the consciousness within me. Initially, we are taught the first fundamental law of Vedanta, that I am other than whatever I experience. I am Atma. Everything that I see and experience is Anatma. Later on, we have to resolve this Anatma within the Atma, as that consciousness lends existence, and that everything that I see and experience is not apart from me. It is an extension of me, just like Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. From this understanding, once I understand I am Atma Brahma, that everything else is Brahman, then what happens is through Atma Jnanam, the byproduct is Karma Sannyasa. What is the difference between a Jnani's action and an Ajnani's action? A Jnani's action, even though he is always doing something, it does not produce punya or papa. It is not binding, whereas almost all actions an Ajnani does is binding. It produces punya or papa, and therefore we have to live again to use up that karma. Jnanam has falsified the entire anatma prapancha. Now, action is done now by a false karta. I know that the ego in me is false. And therefore, a false karta's karma can never be real. This is what is meant by the strange English word, there is no sense of doership. In Sanskrit, it is more beautifully said, Jnanagni Dadda Karmani. That means the fire of knowledge has burnt. It is like a burnt rope. It looks like a rope, but it cannot bind. Another beautiful example is of a roasted seed, which looks like a seed, but it cannot germinate. It cannot. So how does falsification of an Atma take place? Now, this is important that, no, is it just telling I am Satya, the world is not real? Is it just conditioning myself? It is through Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, through Guru and Shastras, I come to know the substrate, the Adhishtanam, which can help me to falsify all that can experience. And through this understanding, I get to know my real nature as Atma, which is none other than God realization. So self-realization is equal to God realization, which is called Adhishtana Jnanam. And that is what makes this world, the Anatma world, false. And now Krishna, instead of using Atma, Atma everywhere, uses the word Brahma. Now this is what is called working spirituality. My sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. In everything, I'm able to see the invisible Atma or Brahman. Life should not be mechanical. We need to be more sensitive to that conscious principle in me, that eternal existence principle in everything around me. This beautiful mantra from Kenopanishad, this says, Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. In every experience can I come in touch with the experiencer. We have completed the study of Tripti Deepa, which was all based on one verse from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purushaha. When the person discovers that I am not ordinary, Vijaniyat, that I am Purusha, Kim Ichan Kasya Kamaya, what is there to be done? So the essence of this verse is the essence of Advaita Vedanta, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much. I have nothing more to say, but I shall just try to explain the slides that I have prepared. In this verse, we see a rare leap into the Upanishad that seldom happens in the Bhagavad Gita. Here we see that Jnanam has, as Dr. Jess said, falsified the Anatma Prapancha. Here we see glorification of Jnanam as the greatest yajna. This is not unfamiliar to us. We have seen this in other texts also. Like in Kaivalya, we have seen Sarva Bhutastham Atmanam, Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani, Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Yati, Na Anyena Hetuna. Experiencing oneself in all beings and all beings in the self, one attains the Brahma Paramam, not by any other means. In the Mundaka Upanishad, we have seen Brahma eva idam amritam purastat, Brahma paschat, Brahma dakshinat cha uttarena, Brahma eva idam vishwam idam varishtam. And most beautifully in the Manisha Panchakam, Brahma eva idam jagatcha sakalam chinmatra vistaritam. Not to forget the Kathopanishad that we are studying now, Anyatra dharmat, Anyatra adharmat, Anyatra asmat, Krita akritat. And Neha nana asti kinchina. There is nothing than Advaita Brahman. So the conclusion is Brahma darshanena anatma nityatva nischaya. Therefore, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, whatever, and the so-called Swarga also is nothing but Brahman with Mithya Nama Rupa. And for this Grahastha Jnani, Brahma Karma Darshanam is Samadhi. Samadhi means Nishtha. It means Brahma Aikya Prapti. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama ma'am, and all the speakers of the day, Madam Shamala, Dr. Meenal, Triveni ma'am, Indumati ma'am, and Dr. Hegde sir, for explaining these important verses about action and inaction and the characteristics of a gnani, whether he is a grihastha or a sannyasi gnani. Let us discover our nature as Nitya Truptaha, always engaged in action, not for happiness, but out of happiness, remaining equanimous in success and failure. As we end today's class and return to our daily routines, let these verses serve as a blueprint as to how we perceive and execute all our duties as grihasthas. Brahma Karma Samadhina. Our gratitude to the grace of God, our gurus, and the speakers of today for this opportunity to understand the greatness of the Gita. Let us tune in for the 20th session of Kathopanishad at 6:45 p.m. on this coming Friday, the 22nd of March. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.